This is Jack. I have on a previous interview basically touched lightly on accidents and how accidents occur and are caused in this world. So, what have I said? That all human beings' lives are pre-programmed. In other words, the moment you're born, your mind consciousness system insert interdimensionally basically is spread out into this world's consciousness unified field, which is the entire grid line system in this world that is connected to the unconscious mind of all human beings. In other words, the moment you're born, your mind consciousness system, which contains the information of your pre-programmed life, will be spread into the entire grid line structure of this world, connected to all human beings in this world through the unconscious mind of this world. So when you walk in, you immediately step into your pre-programmed life, and you basically just walk within that which is already here. Now that occurs with all human beings in this world. Now, I have mentioned this before in a previous interview where I said, obviously the question is, but is it possible with all human beings' lives? Don't they collide somewhere? Yes, they do. These collisions are frictions that are caused when two human beings' pre-programmed lives clash, creating a fusion, creating like a spark between grid lines. So you have human beings on specific grid line placements at the cross point within this entire grid line system within this world that is referred to as the consciousness unified field, connected to the unconscious mind of all human beings, which is the consciousness existence in its entirety. Now, all human beings are connected to that in the grid line system at the cross point. Now, your life is completely mapped out, infiltrated into this whole world pre-programmed. So what happens when two human beings come together is that at one point, if you take two human beings' lines that come together like this and come together here, there's a clash that occurs, a collision, and it causes friction. And this friction wants to explode, but because it's compounding, it's compounding, it's compounding, and it's compounding. And as these two beings walk in their world, this friction is required to be released. Now, what this friction represented is these two beings have a point within their lives that are exactly the same. Let's say, for instance, a fear of a car accident. These two beings both have a fear of a car accident. Now, both of their fears have now compounded and manifested at this particular point because they were in such close proximity of each other's worlds, which is also words. So these two beings, now they have an extensive fear of a car accident, walk their pre-programmed world, and all of a sudden, this friction of the manifestation that they have allowed because of the words they speak through the thoughts that they have thought, that manifested friction here, this friction is required to be released. And what better way to release the friction than the fear of the thought itself, which was a car accident. So these two beings collide and they have a car accident. Airplane crashes, electronic malfunctions. That is usually what happens when there are multiple human beings within an airplane. Okay? Now remember that I've said that this grid line structure is held together by Crown's magnetic expression. So what happens is all these beings' lives for a moment come together in one grid line placement, okay, within which they are manifested. Now, if at least 3/4 of that plane has fear of a plane accident that have been created by them at least 2 or 3 years before, and that fear still existed and still compounded to this day, that friction that is caused within this entire grid line actually causes a electronic malfunction of which the plane will crash. If you look at little feuds, how can I say it, like conflict between two human beings, that is the same place where two human beings' expressions of, let's say, suppression of anger starts compounding at one point within a grid line structure. So they're suppressing their anger and their fear and their or whatever they've experienced for at least a year to 6 months. It's usually 2 years it takes for a friction to manifest within a grid line structure. But within those 2 years, you compound your thoughts and your fears of whatever it is to actually manifest as that friction, to be able to be manifested as an experience, to be let go of, to be released. Because these frictions are required to be released, because it is a unnatural flow within the grid line structure of the world and of all human beings. So conflict is the same thing. If two human beings have suppressed anger that they've been building up for the past 1.5 to 2 years, they get to a point, one thing can tick them off. But if they meet at that grid line structure where that friction has compounded, compounding occurs. What else? Even a human being in their world alone, is able to do the same thing, manifesting anger within their world for about 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years. That anger will manifest as a friction point within the grid line structure still in the future. When they get to that friction point that is compounded, they release it through anger, which is sometimes either through hurting themselves, hurting another, going crazy, going mad for no apparent reason, but actually they built it up 2 years ago. So car accidents, plane accidents, conflicts, fights, etc. is thought creations, thought manifestations of 2 years ago that manifested in the future within a grid line placement within which you and many other beings were involved, that require release, and that release is only able to be released through a manifested experience here on earth according to that which you have compounded within your mind through thoughts. So I bet you cannot remember what thoughts you had 2 years ago. So how do you deal with such events now? First, maybe I suggest when you have these events, particularly now, especially those who are in this process together with us, maybe write it down. What we'll do is we'll analyze it for you. We'll look at where the thought originated from to make sure that you don't do the same mistake again. So we can see why this accident occurred, why this conflict occurred, what thoughts did you have, what experiences do you have, that to compound it to that manifested expression. So I suggest you send us those accidents that happened, especially since recently, especially those that have just joined now. Then we are able to assist you so that you can understand how you did that and how you created that, so we can start practicing self-awareness and applying it. Thank you. This is Jack.